Picture this. You walk into a dealership on a Saturday afternoon just to look around. You've told yourself that 100 times, just looking. 2 hours later, you're sitting across from a finance manager signing a stack of papers for a car that costs more than your first year of college. And somehow, in those 2 hours, you went from just looking to, sure, 7 years sounds fine. And the worst part? You drove home feeling good about it. That feeling disappears about 3 weeks later when you open your banking app and realize your car payment, insurance, and gas just swallowed 30% of your entire take-home pay. You're not living anymore, you're just financing a vehicle. If that story hits a little too close to home, you're exactly where you need to be right now. My name is Miko, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology behind financial decisions, specifically the ones that feel completely reasonable in the moment, but slowly destroy your financial future over time. And few decisions do that quite as efficiently as buying the wrong car. If you're someone who suspects they're spending too much on their vehicle, or someone who's about to walk into a dealership and wants to go in armed with actual numbers instead of vibes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to talk about how much car your salary actually buys you. Not how much the bank says you can borrow, not how much the salesperson says you deserve, but how much you can actually afford without torching your financial future. These are two very different numbers, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which one applies to you. The myth of affordable. Here's the thing. The word affordable might be the most dangerous word in the English language when it comes to personal finance. When a lender says a car is affordable, what they actually mean is that you can make the monthly payment without immediately defaulting. That's it. That's the entire criteria. They are not thinking about your retirement. They are not thinking about your emergency fund. They're not running the numbers on what that payment costs you in lost investment growth over the next 30 years. They're thinking about whether you'll make the payment this month and next month and the month after that, because every single one of those payments is profit for them. And car dealerships have turned the art of making unaffordable things feel affordable into an absolute science. Here's a number that should stop you cold. According to Edmunds, the average monthly payment on a new car in the United States has crossed $700. Some data puts it closer to $742. For used cars, the average sits around $525 per month. And the average loan term? 72 months, 6 years. People are financing depreciating assets for 6 years and acting like this is just how life works. It is not how life works. It's how poverty works on a delay. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think their monthly payment is the cost of their car. It is not even close. Your monthly payment is just one piece of a much larger number that's quietly eating your financial life. When you add insurance, which averages between $150 and $250 per month, depending on where you live, your driving record, and the type of car you bought, you're already well above that payment before you've put a single drop of gas in the tank. Add gas, add maintenance, add the registration renewal that hits you every year and feels like a personal insult. Add the surprise tire replacement, the brake job, the thing that starts making a noise 6 months after your warranty expires. And then, and this is the one that most people genuinely don't think about, add depreciation. New cars lose an average of 20% of their value in the first year alone. Some lose closer to 23%. So that $35,000 SUV you drove off the lot, 12 months later, it's worth maybe $27,000. You just lost $8,000 in value on top of every payment you made, every tank of gas you bought, and every insurance premium you paid. Over 5 years, the average car loses about 60% of its value. The $35,000 car becomes a $14,000 car. Congratulations on your investment. This is the part of the car conversation that dealerships desperately hope you never do the math on. Because once you do, buying an expensive new car looks less like a reward and more like a financial penalty you're voluntarily paying for the privilege of that new car smell. The rules that actually work. Before we get into specific salary breakdowns, you need to understand the framework smart buyers use. Because right now, most people are using one rule when they evaluate a car purchase. Can I make the payment? That's not a rule. That's a trap. The rule that financial experts have landed on is called the 24-10 rule. Here's what it means. You put at least 20% down. You finance for no more than 4 years, and you keep your total transportation costs, payment, insurance, gas, everything, under 10% of your gross monthly income. Some financial planners actually think the 24-10 rule is too generous. They prefer what's called the 23-8 rule. Same 20% down, but you finance for a maximum of 3 years, and you cap total transportation at 8% of gross income. The logic behind shortening the loan to 3 years is blunt and correct. If you cannot pay off a depreciating asset in 3 years, you are buying too much asset. Full stop. Now, you might be thinking, Miko, 20% down in 4 years? Nobody does that. And you'd be right, nobody does that. Which is exactly why the average American is drowning in car debts while wondering why they can never seem to get ahead financially. The people who don't follow these rules are the ones making $742 monthly payments on vehicles that are worth less than they owe. The people who do follow these rules are the ones quietly building wealth while everyone else is broke and car proud. Let's apply these rules to real salaries and see what the actual numbers look like, because this is where most car conversations skip the math entirely, and that is precisely where dealerships make their money. Salary by salary breakdown. If you earn $50,000 per year, let's start at $50,000 annually, after federal taxes, state taxes, and everything the government helps themselves to before your paycheck arrives, you're taking home roughly $3,400 per month. That's your real number, not $50,000. $3,400 every 30 days. Using the 10% rule, your total transportation budget, everything, not just the payment, is $340 per month. Using the more conservative 8% rule, you're looking at $272. Now, let's be real about what those numbers mean in practice. If you're spending a reasonable $130 on insurance and $80 on gas, and those are conservative estimates depending on where you live, you've already used $210 of your transportation budget before the car payment enters the picture. Under the 10% rule, that leaves you $130 for a monthly car payment. Under the 8% rule, you've got about $62. Yes, $62. Here's what most people don't realize. At $50,000 per year, the math is trying to tell you something very specific. It's telling you that you cannot afford a financed car payment right now. At least not a meaningful one. What you can afford is a reliable paid-in-cash or near-cash vehicle in the $6,000 to $9,000 range, ideally with a small short-term loan if needed. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. Nobody wants to be told that their budget points them toward a 2014 Honda Civic with 110,000 miles. But here's the truth that the car industry has worked very hard for you to accept. Reliable transportation and impressive transportation are two completely different things, and at this income level, you can only afford one of them. The good news, and there genuinely is good news here, is that a well-maintained Toyota Corolla or Honda Civic or Mazda 3 with higher miles will get you to work, keep you out of the repair shop more often than you'd expect, and free up your money to actually grow. And that growth is what eventually gets you into a better car without destroying your finances in the process. The path to a nicer car is not stretching your budget for one right now. The path is building your income and wealth until a nicer car fits naturally within these rules. If you earn $75,000 per year, at $75,000 annually, your monthly take-home lands somewhere around $5,000 to $5,200, depending on your state and situation. The 10% rule gives you $510 for total transportation. The 8% rule puts you at around $408. After insurance and gas, let's call it $200 combined, being realistic, you're looking at a car payment somewhere between $200 and $300 per month, depending on which rule you're following. With a 20% down payment, a 3 to 4 year loan, and reasonable used car interest rates, that payment range puts you in vehicles priced between $11,000 and $16,000. You're shopping certified pre-owned. You're shopping late model used with solid reliability ratings. You're not shopping new, and you're definitely not shopping luxury. Here's where the $75,000 earner gets into trouble, and I've seen this happen more times than I can count. They get pre-approved for a $550 monthly payment, and they think that approval is permission. It is not permission. It's an invitation to a financial mistake. The bank approved you because the bank makes money when you make payments. Your approval has nothing to do with what's actually smart for your financial situation. The bank doesn't know about your student loans. The bank doesn't know about your plans to buy a house in 3 years. The bank doesn't care that a $550 car payment will make those goals impossible. You have to care about that because nobody else in that dealership will. If you earn $100,000 per year, now we're getting into the territory where people start rationalizing. Six figures feels like making it, and in a lot of ways, a $100,000 salary genuinely does open up more options. But it doesn't open up as many car options as most people think. Your monthly take-home at this income is roughly $6,500 to $6,800, depending on your deductions and your state. The 10% rule gives you $680 for total transportation. The 8% rule puts you at about $544. After $200 for insurance and gas, and if you're driving a nicer car at this income, your insurance will likely be higher, so let's call it $220. You've got somewhere between $320 and $460 for an actual car payment. With proper down payment and a 4-year loan, that vehicle purchase price puts you in the $18,000 to $24,000 range. You can get a very solid, very reliable, very respectable car in that range. A late model Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord, a Mazda 6, a Hyundai Sonata with low miles. These are real cars that real adults drive without financial embarrassment. But here's the psychological trap that catches six-figure earners more than any other group. They start comparing themselves upward instead of looking at the math. They notice their colleague driving a BMW and think that's what a $100,000 income looks like. And so they go lease a luxury vehicle and suddenly they're paying $650 a month for a car, plus $280 in insurance because it's a BMW, plus gas, and they've just allocated 20% of their gross income to transportation. You know what that colleague driving the BMW might actually look like financially? They might have $8,000 in credit card debt, no emergency fund, and a retirement account that would make a financial advisor cry. Looking successful and being financially successful are two completely different projects. The $100,000 earner who drives a $20,000 paid-off Honda and invests the difference will without exception end up wealthier than the $100,000 earner making luxury car payments for the next 6 years. If you earn $150,000 per year, at $150,000 annually, your take-home depends heavily on your state, but you're likely seeing somewhere between $8,500 and $9,500 per month after taxes. Let's use $9,000 as our working number. The 10% rule gives you $900 for total transportation. The 8% rule puts you at $720. After insurance, which at this income level for the kind of car you're likely considering might run $250 or more, and gas, you're looking at a car payment in the range of $500 to $650 per month. With 20% down and a reasonable loan term, that vehicle purchase price lands between $28,000 and $38,000. That's a real range. That actually gets you a genuinely nice car, a well-equipped mid-size sedan, a 3-year-old luxury vehicle, a solid truck or SUV if that fits your actual needs. You have real options here, and you can exercise them without compromising your financial future. But even at this income level, and I want to be very direct about this, the temptation to overshoot is enormous. Because at $150,000 a year, you can get approved for almost anything. A $70,000 truck, an $80,000 luxury SUV, a $100,000 sports car. The bank will happily write that loan, and your lifestyle will push you toward it because you're surrounded by people who drive those vehicles, and you've worked hard and you feel like you've earned it. Here's what most people don't realize about the wealthy people who actually drive those vehicles. Most of them aren't on a payment plan. The person who can truly afford a $90,000 vehicle is the person who can write a check for it and still have substantial investment accounts, an emergency fund, and financial security that doesn't depend on continued income. If losing your job would make your car payment impossible, you cannot afford that car. Income is not wealth. Income funds lifestyle. Wealth is what survives when the income stops. The math they don't show you. Let me show you two people, same salary, completely different financial outcomes. Jordan earns $85,000 a year. Jordan walks into a dealership and buys a $38,000 SUV.
puts $5,000 down, finances $33,000 over 72 months at an average used car rate. Monthly payment comes out to around $580. Insurance runs $220. Gas and maintenance add another $180. Jordan's total monthly transportation cost is $980. That's roughly 16% of gross income, double the recommended amount. Now meet Alex, same $85,000 salary. Alex buys a 3-year-old Honda Accord for $17,000, puts $3,500 down, finances $13,500 over 36 months. Monthly payment approximately $430. Insurance on the Accord $140. Gas and maintenance $150. Total monthly transportation costs $720. Still a little high, but within striking distance of the 10% guideline. But here's where the story gets genuinely shocking. Jordan is making $980 in monthly transportation costs for 72 months. Alex pays off the Accord in 36 months, then takes that $430 payment and puts it into an index fund every month. For the next 36 months, while Jordan is still making payments, Alex is investing $430 monthly. At a conservative 7% annual return, those 36 months of investing grow to roughly $18,000 by the time Jordan finally makes that last payment. And Alex keeps investing that $430 every month even after that. Over 10 years from the original purchase date, assuming Alex keeps investing that amount, we're looking at over $70,000 in investment growth. Jordan spent those same 10 years making car payments, paying interest, and watching the SUV depreciate from $38,000 to somewhere around $12,000. One person built $70,000 in wealth. The other person has a 10-year-old car worth $12,000. Same salary, completely different financial lives. This is the math that car commercials will never show you. The psychology behind bad car decisions. Let me talk about why smart people make terrible car decisions, because I think this is actually the most important part of the conversation. Car purchases are uniquely dangerous from a psychological standpoint because they hit every emotional trigger we have. They're tied to identity. The car you drive signals something to the world, or at least we believe it does, about who you are, what you've achieved, and where you're headed. The dealership understands this deeply. They're not selling you a vehicle, they're selling you a version of yourself. They're tied to safety. The moment you start a family or think about long road trips, a voice in your head says, you need something reliable, something safe. And that voice is correct, but dealers use it to push you toward a $55,000 SUV when a $22,000 certified pre-owned version would protect your family just as effectively. And they're negotiated using monthly payment math instead of total cost math. This is the big one. When a salesperson asks, what do you want your monthly payment to be? They're shifting your entire frame of reference. Because $50 more per month sounds like nothing, but $50 more per month over 72 months is $3,600. And once you're thinking in monthly payment terms, they can stretch the loan, add the warranty, add the gap insurance, add the paint protection, and your payment only goes up by a small amount each time. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop evaluating cars by their monthly payment. Evaluate them by their total cost. Purchase price plus total interest paid plus insurance over the loan term, plus estimated maintenance. That's the real number. And when you look at the real number, a lot of cars that seemed affordable suddenly reveal themselves for what they actually are. What to actually do? Here's the actionable part, because I don't want this to be just 30 minutes of telling you you're doing it wrong. First, know your number before you walk in. Take your monthly take-home, multiply it by 0.10, subtract your estimated insurance and gas costs. What's left is your maximum car payment. Write it down. Put it in your phone. Do not let anyone in that building change that number. Second, shop for the car before you shop for the loan. Find the vehicle you want at the price that fits your budget, then arrange financing independently through your bank or credit union before you ever sit down with a dealer's finance manager. Dealers make significant profit on financing. Removing that element from the negotiation removes their most powerful tool. Third, shorter loan every time. If you cannot afford the payment on a 36 or 48-month loan, you cannot afford the car. A longer loan term doesn't make the car more affordable, it makes the bank richer and you poorer. Every extra month is extra interest on a thing that's losing value simultaneously. Fourth, buy used, specifically 2 to 4 years old. This is where the depreciation curve works in your favor instead of against you. The original buyer absorbed that brutal first-year 20% depreciation hit. You get a nearly new car at a substantially lower price. For many makes and models, a 3-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle is genuinely one of the best purchases you can make. Fifth, run the opportunity cost math. Before you commit to any car payment, open a compound interest calculator and type in the difference between what you're about to spend and what the rules say you should spend. Multiply that monthly difference over 10 years at 7%. Look at that number. That's what the nicer car is actually costing you. Not the sticker price, not the payment, but the wealth you're choosing not to build. Look, I'm not here to tell you that cars don't matter or that you should drive something embarrassing for the rest of your life. Cars matter, transportation matters, getting to work reliably matters. But here's the truth that the entire car industry is built on keeping you from understanding. You are not your car. Your net worth is not visible from the highway. Nobody who matters in your life actually cares what you drive. And the person sitting next to you in the red light in the brand new luxury SUV might be one missed paycheck away from disaster, while the person behind them in the 8-year-old Toyota is quietly funding a retirement account that will let them stop working a decade earlier than anyone else in the neighborhood. The car you drive is a choice. The wealth you build is a consequence of that choice, compounded over years. At $50,000, you're buying reliable transportation in the $8,000 range. At $75,000, you're shopping around $15,000. At $100,000, you open up to $25,000. And at $150,000, you can comfortably stretch toward $35,000 to $38,000 without losing sleep. Those numbers feel conservative. They are meant to feel conservative. Because conservative today is wealthy tomorrow. If this video just changed the way you think about your next car purchase, or maybe made you reconsider the one you're already making, hit that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more ground to cover. Check out the video on how to actually build wealth on an average income, because avoiding bad car decisions is just the beginning. Drive boring, build wealth. See you in the next one.